another episode of Debating Metal. I'm your host, Kenneth Dean, the Dean of Metal, and I'm joined by my guest co-host, Sklo. After the rise and fall of grunge, the new wave of American heavy metal saw an explosion of new artists and new styles. One of the bands that stood out and led the way was Lamb of God.
Formed in 1994 as Burn the Priest, the band released their self-titled debut album in 1999, and 1 year later they changed their name to Lamb of God, and the rest, they say, is history. After 11 full-length albums, 9 of those as Lamb of God and 2 of those as Burn the Priest, with one of those, Burn the Priest, as a cover album, they also have 1 EP and 1 live album. Lamb of God have sold over 2 million albums in the U.S., and after touring with bands such as Anthrax, Megadeth, and most recently Pantera, Lamb of God show no signs of slowing down anytime soon.
So today, Sklo and I have chosen 15 songs each from their catalog that we consider their best songs. Any tracks we duplicate will automatically make the list. Whichever songs are not, we'll debate to see which ones make the final cut. Then we'll arrange them in concert set list order for the ultimate Lamb of God greatest hits. And at the end, stick around, we'll give you our big 4 Lamb of God albums. So sit back, relax, turn it up to 11, and let the debate begin. So Sklo,
Yes.
Lamb of God, one of your favorite bands. Am I wrong? Am I right?
I'm very excited about this episode. When you reached out to me about this episode, I was super excited. Yes, Lamb of God is one of my favorite bands ever and around right now. I love these guys. It was hard to get this list down to 15 songs. I'll tell you that, for me anyway.
It's funny. I know about how things are hard to get down a certain number. If I'm not mistaken, with Metallica, we got it down to 15 when Chris K and I did it. And I think we did 20 for Iron Maiden. And then when we did Motorhead, we did 2 episodes for Motorhead. It was Greatest Hits 1 and Greatest Hits 2, because it ended up being they had the 2, basically it was like 2 eras, the original 3 guys, and then a few years later into, when there was 4 guys, and then back to 3 after Filthy Animal Taylor left, and then after Fast Eddie Clark left. They became a 4-piece and a 3-piece and a 4-piece and 3-piece. But then, like the second, from the 2000s on or somewhere around there, they were a completely different band, and they were so potent in all the stuff they did. We did 2 greatest hits episodes for them. So I know how hard it can be to narrow this down to 15.
Yes, it was very hard.
All right.
I'm very excited.
Cool. Awesome. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to read off my 15 songs that I chose. And you're probably going to sit there and say, why do you choose that one? Or, oh, I didn't think of that one. Or you can sit there and say, yeah, I knew he was going to pick those. But then you'll give me your 15. So anyway, my 15. And this is in no particular order, although most of the time it comes out in chronological order. All right. Number 1, Black Label from New American Gospel. Number 2, Ruin from As the Palace Burns. Number 3, Laid to Rest from Ashes of the Wake. Number 4, Now You've Got Something to Die For, also from Ashes of the Wake. Number 5, number 5, 6, and 7. So number 5, Walk With Me in Hell. Number 6, Redneck. Number 7, Beating on Death's Door, all 3 from Sacrament. Number 8, Set to Fail from Wrath. Number 9, Terminally Unique from Resolution. Number 10, The Undertow from Resolution. Number 11, Still Echoes from 7, Sturm und Drang. And number 12, The Duke from the Duke EP. Number 13, Gears from Lamb of God, the self-titled album. And number 14, Memento Mori from Lamb of God. And then last but not least, the new album, Omens, I picked Ditch. So there's my 15. What do you think of that?
I love your list. It's a great list. Definitely some different than mine, but we do have a lot of similar ones. I'm trying to think top of my head, but we'll go down and count those at the end. But yeah, I really think that's an awesome list. That's a great set list for if you came out to see a Lamb of God show. I'd be very happy with that as a set list. So that's awesome, man. So yeah, we do have similar ones. I think we have about 6 or 7 that are about the same. So I think that's good. That gets us a start overall. So I did the same thing. I listed in minor and chronological order. And one thing I did want to preface that we didn't say in the beginning is we're only doing the Lamb of God moniker albums. We're not doing the Burn the Priest self-titled album. Just want to throw that out there to all the listeners. So first for me was Black Label from New American Gospel. And then I have Ruin, Vigil, and 11th Hour from As the Palace Burns. And then I have Laid to Rest, Now You've Got Something to Die For, and Hourglass from Ashes of the Wake. And then I have Blacken the Cursed Sun, Redneck, Walk With Me in Hell from Sacrament. That gives me 10 so far. My next one is In Your Words from the Wrath album. Then I have Ghost Walking from Resolution. And then I have 2 from Sturm und Drang. I have Engage the Fear Machine and Still Echoes. And rounding out my 15 is Memento Mori from Lamb of God self-titled album.
So nothing from the new one.
I love the new one. There was 1 or 2 that Ditch is my favorite song on that album. So that almost, I know we had a talk and I told you it was hard to cut down my list. That was up there for me. It's one of my it was probably my top 20. But it's so hard. I'm telling you, it's so hard for me. Lamb of God, man. I took some out of this list I can't believe I didn't have in here. But hey, it is what it is. You got to pick 15 songs. So you got to do. But yeah, so yeah,
it's hard to pick this 15. Okay, well that means that we have 8 songs that have crossed over, so those 8 automatically make the list, and that leaves 7 spots for us to fill with 14 songs or something like that. Yeah, so 7 from me and 7 from you. So that's going to be it's going to be quite a little bit of a battle. Which is cool. So for new listeners out there, the way this is going to work now is we're going to, each of us, we're going to do this in rounds. So the first round is I will pick a song from my list that I want to keep, and Sklo will pick a song from his list he wants to keep. And those 2 will be added to the final list. Round 2, I'm going to pick a song from my list I'm willing to drop. And then Sklo is going to pick a song from his list he's willing to drop. That completes round 2. Round 3, I will pick a song from Sklo's list that I'm willing to keep, and he will pick a song from my list he's willing to keep. That's round 3. Round 4, I will pick a song from his list that I would like to drop, and he will pick a song off of my list that he would like to drop. And that's round 4. And then we start all over again. The same as we did round 1 until we fill up the 7 spots. So it becomes a little bit of a unique way to do this because sometimes if we're not careful, we can miss a song. And as evidenced by when I had this same debate with Chris K, I left off Open Your Eyes from Alter Bridge during their Alter Bridge Greatest Hits episode. So Sklo, why don't you start off by picking a song off your list that you want to keep?
Real quick, can I just run down the 8 that everybody kind of knows what the 8 were? So the 8 that we had the same were Black Label, Ruin, Laid to Rest, Now You've Got Something to Die For, Redneck, Walk With Me in Hell, Still Echoes, and Memento Mori. So you have 7 left, and I have 7 left. So I'm going to pick one. Sorry, I'm going to pick one that I want to keep. Right?
Yes, something from your list you want to keep. Now, remember when you do this.
Yes.
And I know this is your first time, so this is gonna. There's some interesting things at work here. And we've never ever kind of altered things in such a way, but we try to keep in mind we don't want to overload from one album too much over the rest. But that's not to say that if there's 3 songs from an album that deserve to be there, that you shouldn't put the songs on there. So what I'm getting at, so for instance, if we were doing Metallica and all of a sudden, we're on, we pick 5 songs from Ride the Lightning, and there's only 2 songs from, say, Justice for All. Sometimes we want to make sure that we have equal representation, but that's not always the case. So don't feel like you need to. It's just if you want to.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So shoot.
All right. My first song that I'm going to keep is Black in the Cursed Sun.
All right. Black in the Cursed Sun. All right. So Black in the Cursed Sun is your choice for a song you want to keep. All right. So now I have to pick a song off of my list that I want to keep. And I got to sit there and tell you this. I'm not the biggest Lamb of God fan. It took a lot of getting used to for me when I first heard them. There was some really, the first album I heard was Ashes of the Wake. It really, really took me by surprise. That was right about the time when that album came out is when I got into the whole metalcore scene, or the harder part of the new wave of American heavy metal. And I got into them with, it was Lamb of God, Shadows Fall, and God Forbid was another band that I really got into. And I got to say, Lamb of God was probably the one I liked the least, because I really couldn't get into Randy's style of vocals. And it wasn't just the screaming and the deathiness sound, but it was the way he sounded. And of all those 3 bands, obviously God Forbid is not around anymore. And Shadows Fall kind of ended, and they've done a couple comebacks, and they just recently played a gig. So they reunited for in between Anthrax's spare time, because they got John Deny.
They're actually playing next weekend in Massachusetts. My son's trying to go. They're playing with the Lamb of God.
Super cool. Oh, they're playing with Lamb of God?
Yeah, it's like a festival, and there's like a reunion show, and they're going to be there, and Lamb of God's headlining it. It's like a 3-day thing, and it's in Boston.
That's pretty cool. If I was up there, I would love to go.
Yeah, he was going to try to go, but he's unable to go. But anyway,
so that was my thing. So it was really hard for me in picking, because I don't listen to these albums very often. So I'm like, all right, what do I want to do? So I said something has to stand out for me. Something has to stand out. So in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and pick The Duke, because it is a contrast to everything that Lamb of God typically does. And they started with the song Overlord, with the clean vocals, and there's a combination towards the end where there's some growling vocals. But The Duke is just it's a different kind of song, and I like it. It definitely, in terms of a concert, is going to slow things up and kind of reset the show. So I like that. So that's my pick, The Duke.
Okay. But you said Overlord. Overlord was my number 16 song. It almost made my cut. I was fighting to get that one on there.
I'm surprised you didn't pick that one.
It literally was, honestly, up until like an hour before, I was still updating. Like I was debating where to put songs. It literally just missed it. Like it was in my 15, then I dropped it, and then like I love that song because I love it. It's different. It's a different type of Lamb of God song, and I love it. I love it. I mean, again, I am, and you talk about, like, one thing I want to say to you too, I thought was really interesting what you said is I was the same way. When I first listened to Lamb of God, the first album I heard was, As the Palace Burns. And I liked it, but I wasn't like, it's when I started getting into that style of music a little bit more. And then I saw them live. I'm not no lie. I saw them live a little bit after that. And honestly, I was like, man, I don't know. I'm not, like, same thing as you. It was hard for me to get into it. And then I'll tell you, I gave it another chance, and then Ashes of the Way came out, and I was like, wow. Like, I was like, this is unbelievable. I just loved it. And I love the way he sang and sings. I love the way they play together, the band. And then I went back to listening to As the Palace Burns, and I love it. So it's just, I guess it was just a phase I was in at that time, and getting into that phase. And now, like, anything they put out, I love. And literally, they're one of my top bands to listen to right now. I love them. And I think his lyrics are just amazing, by the way, too, that he comes with. So anyway, just wanted to say that. So So yeah, you picked the Duke. That's a good one. That's a good one to pick. I love that.
Yeah, it's a good change of pace song.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. All right. So we're down to you
So
pick one for my list. Is that how it
no,
works?
round 2, you're going to pick one from your list you're willing to drop.
Willing to drop. Okay. I'm looking at my list. I have Vigil, 11th Hour, Hourglass, In Your Words, Ghost Walking, and Engage the Fear Machine. I think I am going to drop Ghost Walking.
Ghost Walking. See ya.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
But I'll listen to you soon. Don't worry. I'm still going to be there to hold you, baby. Don't worry.
All right, so we have just looking at this and the list and the way it's laid itself out. So you picked Black in the Cursed Sun, and so that gives us 3 songs from Sacrament.
Yes.
And I even though I have a song from Sacrament that I like that I actually started listening to today, I'm like, that's a pretty cool song. I'm going to go ahead and drop it because we already have 3 songs from Sacrament, and that's going to be Beating on Death's Door.
Yeah, that's a great song. Great song.
Okay, so now it's your turn to pick a song off of my list you want to keep.
All right. This, to me, it's actually pretty between 2, but I'm going to set to fail. I'm going to put on your list. Put on the list. I love
So
that
you're going
song.
to keep Set to Fail. All right.
Keep Set to Fail, which is off the Wrath album.
Okie dokie. All right, so now I have to pick a song off of your list I'm willing to keep. I say we go ahead and keep Hourglass.
Okay. All right. I like that. It gives us 3 off Ashes of the Wake, which is, great album.
All right, so we now have chosen 12 songs. We have 3 spots left.
Yes.
So at this round, we are going to pick a song off the other person's list that we would like to drop. So
Ooh,
what song off of my list are you willing to drop?
let me go with, I think I'm going to drop Terminally Unique.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sorry, man. I'm
I was
sorry.
looking
It's
at that
hard for
one.
me, man. I love all the songs. It's my yeah. I know that's a good one, man. No, it's hard. It's hard for me to drop that because that's off of Resolution, right? Yeah, that's a good
Yep.
song. But yeah, I'm sorry there, Dean. I'm gonna drop.
You don't got to be sorry.
I know.
All right. Let's see. All right. So off of your list, I'm going to. Okay. So it's between 2 songs: "Engage the Fear Machine" and "11th Hour." Those are the 2 songs that I've chosen to go ahead and see. So I'm going to drop "Engage the Fear Machine."
Okay. Not happy with that, but it's okay. I would have said that. I would have said that for any song you dropped. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I remember when we did Metallica, it was so hard because like every single one of those songs are my babies, kind of thing,
Yeah. But that's how I feel with all these too. Okay, so looks like we have 3 left each. So what's the next? Yeah, we're back to picking our own song.
Yes, we're back to picking our own song. Again, we have already picked 12 spots, so we're looking to pick the next 2 spots. So we got 13 and 14. So we're gonna see what we pick.
Okay, and then the 15th we debate that one.
The 15th one. So when we get to the next round, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3 songs each left, right?
Yep.
So what's going to end up happening is we're going to pick us 2 songs, and that'll leave us with 2 each.
Yep.
And then we're going to drop a song from each of our lists, right? So that'll leave us with 1 song each, and then that last song, one of those 2 songs is going to make the list. So
Okay.
Choose wisely.
All right. I am going to choose Vigil.
So you're keeping Vigil.
Yes.
All right. All right. So for me, um, I've got the Undertow, I've got Gears, and I've got Ditch left. And um, we've got a song already off of Resolution. Oh no, we don't. We took Terminally Ill off. Do we have a song from Resolution on here? No,
We do
right?
not. No, we not.
Okay.
Undertow's on Resolution, right?
Right. And then we don't have anything off of Omens. I've only picked one song. So um, this is where things start to get interesting because we still also have Gears, but we already have something off of Lamb of God just in case. Um, all right. I'm going to go ahead and pick The Undertow as a song to keep.
Okay. That's a good one. That's a good song there.
All right. So now we have chosen 14 spots. However, this round is the song off your own list that you're willing to drop. So that means that whatever song you keep is not necessarily going to make the final list because you have one song against me that you have to battle. So choose wisely.
I am going to drop 11th Hour.
Alrighty then. That was quick.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I love that song, but I'm going to drop that. We have two songs from As the Palace Burns. Two really good songs. So I'm good. I'm good with that.
All right. So God, I heard these songs earlier, and the funny thing about it is, like I said, since I'm not a huge Lamb of God fan, a lot of this stuff, they've all these songs have great grooves, and some of them are faster, and some of them are not as fast because I can't say they're slow, other than the Duke and Overlord. But
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing slow from Lamb of God whatsoever.
No.
And it's funny. It's like there's not even anything like for instance, like in Metallica, like a thing that should not be. That's just as slow and chuggy and sludgy. There's nothing
Yeah.
like that either.
Yeah.
Like maybe you'll get the Lamb of God to stop a song in the middle of it, and they'll do like a little chug, right? But then they just go back to just ripping your face off, and so it is such a unique and unusual thing.
It is.
So between these two songs, Gears and Ditch, man, I don't know which one to pick, but I'm gonna roll the dice and I'm gonna say I'm gonna drop Gears and see what happens to Ditch.
All right. So we're dropping Gears, which is off of
Lamb of
Lamb of
God.
God. So we have Ditch left from Omens and In Your Words from Wrath.
Right.
So now we have to debate those two, right?
So now, yeah. So In Your Words and the Ditch, yeah. So it's now. So the question then becomes, which one do you think is better than the other? So now you had spoken to me earlier when we first talked about this, how you were ranking all your songs.
Yes.
Right. So if you did that exercise, this actually should be a really easy decision for you to make.
It is.
Okay.
But it's hard because these two songs are ranked. So In Your Words is a top 10 song for me, for Lamb of God, and Ditch is, I have it ranked 19th, and I had In Your Words ranked 9th on my list. So for me, even though they're on the upper ranking of all the Lamb of God songs, Ditch has only been around, fairly new song, so I haven't heard as much of In Your Words. Ditch, they recently played Ditch live at the show, which I was so excited about. You were there as well. You probably heard it as well.
Yep.
When you saw them in Texas there. But In Your Words has been a song for me. Honestly, it's one of the songs that, like, anytime I listen to it, it kind of goes up my rankings the more and more I listen to it. And then as I was going through this exercise, I listened to it a lot, but like I haven't listened to it for, maybe a little bit, and I put it on and I'm just like, man, it's so good. It's just the way it's the first, it's there's a little instrumental on the album, the passing, and it goes into In Your Words, and it's just so, and the lyrics are just awesome. So for me, it's In Your Words, and that's, I know we don't have a song from the new album on there. We do have one from Wrath already. But for me, it's just hard for me to not pick In Your Words. So,
okay. So,
but we can definitely debate it.
No, I know. I get you. So, when I listen to the songs earlier this afternoon, I was listening to a lot of this stuff. So during my lunch hour, I had Lamb of God playlists playing all morning long. On the way home, my wife was taking my daughter to voice lessons, so I was able to actually have some time to myself in the car. Although, God, I was struggling to stay awake driving home. It was so bad.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I listened to. I didn't really listen to Ditch because I had wanted to hear some of the other songs, and that's how I picked some of the ones that we were already listening to. I heard them on the way home.
Yeah.
Or that I'm sorry, some of the other songs that I've chosen. So for me, Ditch was one. Yeah, I heard it at the concert a couple weeks ago. I thought it was pretty cool. I remember when they talked about it, and what I noticed about Ditch was the verses. He's almost kind of rapping in a way.
Hmm.
He has a staccato about the way he's singing that song and the verses that almost kind of rapping, and I thought that was unusual. But I still think the song is really good. However, in your words, basically is the kickoff of that album. It has that instrumental interlude, and that's great. Um, but it's still really the first legitimate song on the album. So, I mean, you have it as a top 10 song,
Hmm.
and you have it at number 19, and the reason why you have it that way, obviously you've spent more time within your words. So the question then becomes, do you think it would ever be a situation where Ditch would rise into the top 20, or higher in the top 20 than it is now?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah. I mean, like literally, honestly, going into this whole process, me ranking all the songs, like the number one song that I ranked actually ended up surprising me because I didn't think it was going to be my number one song, and it was. And we I'll talk about it at the end if you want. I don't want to give it away here, um, but it was just like the more and more I listened to it, I'm like, man, that's my favorite song by them. It's just so good. But yeah, so that's so yeah, could Ditch move up? I guess it could. But I've listened to In Your Words since it came out. I forgot what year Wrath came out on top of my head. But I mean, ever since it came out, it's been a song that I've like always loved. Um, you know, from the beginning. So yeah. I guess we can. I mean, you tell me. Like, I obviously want to pick In Your Words. You probably want to pick Ditch. So I
No,
think we
I
have to
mean,
make a decision. And I'm fine either
it's
way.
one of those things where, I can't force one thing over the other, right? And it becomes an issue of which one of us is willing to say, okay, I'll take that song, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think if for me, you are the bigger Lamb of God fan. So to me, a true Lamb of God fan at this point in what we're doing would probably prefer to hear In Your Words, only because Ditch is new. In Your Words is something that you've quote unquote grown up with the band with. So
Like In Your Words would be it would be a song live that when it comes on, all the fans will look at each other like, "Oh my God, they're playing In Your Words!" Like that, I just know it. Like that's because they don't play it a lot anymore when the album came out. But I know it's a song that I just know I look over at a fan like, "Oh my God, they're playing this." Yes, you know what I mean, that type of thing.
right,
You know,
and then
so
it's a
that's what
true
I
fan song. It's a deep cut, right?
yeah. And so is the
So
Duke. Like the Duke would be like, "Oh my God," people will be the same thing. They're like, "Oh my God, they're playing the Duke and Undertows." They don't really play those a lot live, so I think that would be cool as well. So I do think um, that would be the reason I would pick it because of that reason. I think fans would definitely be like, "Oh shit, that's awesome."
okay, well let's keep In Your Words, and I'm willing to drop Ditch. So
All right.
we're gonna
So
keep In Your
looking at
Words.
our list, we have 15 awesome songs, and 8 of the 9 albums are represented. I noticed, and plus an EP, the Duke EP. But so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
The only one not represented is the new one, which is Ditch, which we almost made it. So we got close to that. So I think that's pretty cool.
All right, so let me read them off.
Sure.
It's what we have here. Okay, so we have the top 15. So we're going to then now put these in concert set list order. So the 15 songs that we're going to choose from are Black Label, Ruin, Laid to Rest, Now You've Got Something to Die For, Walk With Me in Hell, Redneck, Set to Fail, The Undertow, Vigil, Hourglass, Black and the Cursed Sun, Still Echoes, Memento Mori, and In Your Words. I think I got everything there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, I think so.
Okay. So now you and I basically will get to pick the songs in the way we would love to hear them in concert. So like if they put out a live album and we would go to the store and look at that, we would say, this is what the set list I want to see. Let's see who should go first on this one. You went first on the picking. So I think I'm going to go ahead and go first and start this show off. And with that being said, I like what they're doing right now when it comes to the way that they're starting their set. And I've seen them twice in the last 2 years, I think it is. I saw them obviously open with Pantera. They played with Megadeth a couple years back. And both cases, they opened the show with Memento Mori. And I think that's something that we should see in this particular instance as well. So I'm going to go ahead and put Memento Mori as the first song.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I like what they're doing with it too. It's a great opening, the little instrumental in the beginning, and they drop that curtain and we get into it. So yeah, I think that's really good for a song. Okay, with that, I am going to go. I'm trying to listen to the song in my head and how it ends, and and like them going into something like right after that. And to be honest, I was going to pick one, but now the more I think about it and listening to like the sequence of the song, I think I'm going to go with actually In Your Words as the second song.
All right. All right. So where does that leave me here? I have no idea from here because everything sounds really fast at this point. I mean, I know certain songs that I'd like to see kept towards the end. And there's sometimes like where you want to hear that like a kind of like a hit single early in the set, just so you got something to sit there and say, yeah. But we're not there yet. So, how about, and again, I'm not as familiar with these songs, so I'm not as familiar with how they end and how they begin completely. But how about Ruin at this point?
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go right into a slow song. Just joking when I say that. We're going to go with, man, this is banger after banger for me, man. We're going to go with Now You've Got Something to Die For. Get that up there in the early part of the set.
I had a feeling that's what you were going to go with when you said slow song.
Yeah. Right.
Because it's funny, it starts off slow and then it picks up the pace, but it never really is super fast. That's the one thing about this song. I guess if you're going to consider it a slower song, this is probably the slower kinds of songs that they have.
Yeah.
All right. All right. How about from here we go into Still Echoes?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. So we're about 5 songs in. Still got 10 more to list here.
Now, one thing I forgot to mention earlier at the beginning when we started doing this set listing is we're going to pick the first 12 songs, which is the main part of the set, and then songs 13, 14, and 15 will be encores.
Okay.
So try to keep in mind that the song you're going to pick, number 12, is going to be the set closer.
Yep.
So that's key because you don't want a boring song.
Yep.
You want something that's going to get the fans going crazy.
All right, that sounds good. Okay. Then what I'll do is let's go. I have a good idea here. So let's go with my favorite song So I told you earlier my favorite song by them. My favorite song by them is Black and the Cursed Sun. So let's go with that song right there in the middle there.
Okie dokie.
And that was the song I was telling you earlier. Like it was as I listened to it more and more and more. Like it's top of my list every time.
And it's
so
funny.
If you don't know that one as well, please listen to that one because so good.
So it's funny because you get songs like that. Like when you're a super fan, I would consider you a super fan of Lamb of God. You're a super fan of Metallica, and as am I. And there's songs that the casual listener will never know. And then there's songs that the average listener will know, but don't necessarily keep in high regard. And then super fans, like the deep tracks, are like, this is their best song,
Mm-hmm.
And I totally understand how it is because, like, for instance, for me, even though Metallica plays this song almost every time they play live, Creeping Death is my favorite Metallica song, right? But my number two favorite Metallica song is not For Whom the Bell Tolls. Number two is The Four Horsemen.
Yeah.
And that gets it's funny because that gets such a really, really big response when they play it live. And it's sad that they don't play it as often. But when you're 40 years into your career and you got a shit ton of songs you got to play, some songs have to be dropped off.
Yeah.
But
get it.
That to me is one of their best songs, and that, we all know it's a Dave Mustaine song. I get it. But it's still, the lyrics were changed by James, so it's still an awesome song. So I understand how you feel when you pick Black and the Cursed Sun. All right, so that gives us 6 songs, and now I get to pick a song. Let's see. How about we're right in the middle of the set. Why don't we throw in Vigil here?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay.
I think what I'll do is kind of, right in the middle, like you said, slow it down a little bit, and we'll put the Duke in there, right there.
That's a good idea.
Just to kind of give people a little break from the pit, and then, get a water in you, get a beer, not leave, but just kind of take a step back and just listen to a little bit, and then we're going to get right back into some, because the songs we have left are pretty good songs. They're all good songs, but some bangers coming up here.
So considering that, and we're talking about bangers, how about we come out with Black Label?
All right.
What do you think of that?
Good song, man. I love it.
All right. Now it's your choice. So now we have 3 songs left before the end of the set.
Yeah.
So you have to keep in mind what song you want in the encore too.
Yeah, I'm gonna go the undertow here.
You're gonna go with the undertow.
Yep.
Okay. I like it.
We have 5 songs. We have 2. One we want to end, and then kind of get it going towards the end here. So.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs left. And 3 of them are really big songs for the band. So how about we put Set to Fail here in number 11?
Okay.
Now, one thing I did forget to mention is that you do have a veto. You have 2 vetoes that you can use if you don't like a song in a particular spot.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that. Not that I don't. It's hard to say with Lamb of God, what song prefers.
Yeah.
But like if you told me you were trying to hold, just joking around, if you were trying to hold Hourglass for the last song, I'd probably veto that.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I didn't know you could veto. So there's one that that you put on that I think I would like somewhere else. But
okay, what song was that?
But I mean, you can argue it if you want. Black Label. I know I said I think that would be perfect at the song before going into the encore because it's their first big song. People love that song, and I think it's like a great closing going into there's a little break and then we go into the encore. So I would like that at the 12th spot if we
you
can
would
get
like
it there.
Black Label at 12.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So
if you're and then I think that'd be perfect song.
So then, how about in the Black Label spot? Now, for number 11, I had said what? I just put
Got to fail.
Set to Fail. Are you good with Set to Fail, and that's in number 11?
I would be fine that or Hourglass if that's what you were thinking.
So at number 9, then we also have to look at replacing Black Label. So I'm thinking putting Walk with Me in Hell in the number 9 spot.
Oh, yeah. I'll be good with that.
Okay.
I'll be
So
good with that.
Walk with Me in Hell in number 9, and then Set to Fail at number 11.
Okay.
You good with that? All right. So
Yeah, that's good.
that leaves us with Laid to Rest, Redneck, and Hourglass.
Yes.
All right. I'm gonna go out on a limb here at number 13, coming out of Black Label, and then coming out of the darkness into the encore. I'd like to see it start off with Laid to Rest.
Oh, okay. I like that. Good one there.
All right. So now
Then
you're picking number 14.
yeah.
So you got Redneck and Hourglass.
I'm gonna go with another Ash of the Wake song, Hourglass. So like two bangers, Ash of the Wake, Bam Bam, and go with Hourglass.
Which leaves Redneck as the finale.
Yes.
That, my friend, is one awesome set list.
It is. It's a great set list.
I like it.
I do
All
too.
right. So go ahead and read it off.
All right. So big concert going on tonight. Got Lamb of God hitting the stage, and we got first song, Memento Mori from Lamb of God. And we have In Your Words from Wrath, Ruin, As the Palace Burns. Now You've Got Something to Die For, Ashes of the Wake, Still Echoes, Therm Undrog, Black and the Cursed Sun, Sacrament, Vigil, As the Palace Burns, The Duke from the Duke EP, Walk With Me in Hell, Sacrament, The Undertow from Resolution, Set to Fail, Wrath, Black Label, New American Gospel, Laid to Rest, Ashes of the Wake, Hourglass, Ashes of the Wake, and Redneck, Sacrament. That's a great set list. I mean, I think when I look and all the times I've seen them, I don't think two of these songs I don't think I've ever seen live, so it'd be really cool to see. I don't think I've ever seen the Duke or the Undertow live, but all the other ones I have seen, and so it'd be cool. That's what's cool. Like you go to a show and you get a song that you haven't seen before. That's kind of the goal sometimes. Is when you want to see, of course, certain ones, but you get one like, oh man, they're playing the Duke or they're playing the Undertow. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so both, like we talked about on the previous episode, both you and I participated in the M72 weekend, and there were songs that I hadn't heard in a long time, like Leper Messiah and Dirty Window. And Dirty Window, it's funny, you and I had talked about that, and it's not really a high priority kind of song to listen to off of Saint Anger, but it actually came across pretty well when I was watching it. And so I was not like, oh, they should have played something else, and just as like when they played Leper Messiah, I was like, whoa, I haven't heard this in a while,
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. And I can't remember now off the top of my head what the one song was that was played that I had not heard live before, but I think there was one other than the 72 season song, but anyhow, it was a pretty cool show. But this Lamb of God set list, I've seen them headline. Oh, I'm gonna someone's gonna comment at me when I say this, but I saw them play a headlining show with Anthrax, and I left mid set.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I left mid set was because at the time I was not into Lamb of God as much, and I was there really just to see Anthrax, and I was disappointed to find out that Anthrax was the opener and not the closer.
Yes.
Which was a surprise. But what was amazing about it is when Anthrax finished, all the old fogies, like myself, walked out, and all of a sudden the place got packed with Lamb of God fans. It was at that moment when I realized the guard had changed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was like, and Anthrax was never a major headline act. They always went back and forth between headlining and opening up for other bands. But man, it was amazing to see how many people kind of shifted. You know, a lot of people walked out on Anthrax because they were going to get a beer or go to the bathroom. It was in between sets. But then when all of a sudden when Lamb of God came on, the place was packed. And I was like, wow, I'm really surprised. So,
Yeah.
so they were headlining that show, and I did not, I did not stay for the whole thing. So that's my bad. And 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 I did get to see Chris Adler play drums for Megadeth. That was pretty
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
He came out with a mask on his face and left it on the whole time, which I was really surprised about.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I didn't understand that at all. Like
I
why
tried.
was he playing with a mask on?
I thought there was a reason why he had a mask on. Honestly, I
But
remember.
anyway, that was I mean, every time I've seen them, I think every time I've seen them, I think they've gotten better. And so this last time when we saw them open for Pantera, it was amazing. I thought they were great. So
Yeah,
I
and that's the thing. I think that's you say the key word. They've gotten better every time I see them. Like I'm never gonna miss them live again. Like I never miss them anymore because I think I actually couldn't go to that Anthrax Lamb of God tour. I didn't go. I missed that one unfortunately. But I've seen them pretty much every time. I've seen them 10 times, so I've seen them a lot. I mean, every time they're in this area, I pretty much see them, and they are just so good, and they get better and better every time you see them. And their energy, that's the one thing about them. Their energy on stage is just amazing. Like it's hard not to like get into. It's hard not to. Like I converted one of my friends who's really not into that type of music. I'm like, dude, just go to the Slam of God show with me. I'm telling you, you're gonna have the best time. And he was like, dude, that. And then he went to another one with me. It's like not even his favorite type of music, but he just like the energy they bring and what they do on stage. It's hard not to like get into it. So again, this set list I think would be awesome to see, and I would love. I'm actually going to put this together on my like Apple or my Amazon playlist. Put this set list together and to have it to listen to.
So one thing we used to do, we tried to do, was get our greatest hits as playlists to offer up on Spotify. However, I realized that it wasn't working because we weren't paying for a Spotify account. We had a free account. So I tried to get it set up on my as a secondary on my personal account. So I don't know if certain things are available yet, but I will be going back in. So for those of you who listen to the show and want to see some of these playlists and some of these greatest hits, I am working at getting this added as a feature, getting the all the greatest hits playlist. I'm not there yet as far as purchasing a separate Spotify account because I already have a family account. So we're trying to figure out how to squeeze them into the family account and see if it works. But yeah, I did the same thing kind of when I was getting ready for the concert. I checked out the set list and I put all those songs as a playlist in that order so that I could be comfortable listening to them and saying, "Oh, okay, this is what they're playing." And so I knew what was coming, but I also wanted to get into it. So, all right,
Gotcha.
that
Awesome.
brings us to our big four for tonight, and tonight's big four is Lamb of God albums. So, since you are the bigger Lamb of God fan, I'm going to go first so that you can probably rip apart and critique my album choices. Okay. And then we'll
Okay.
go from there.
All right.
All right. So, big four Lamb of God albums. Number four for me. And I was surprised by this because when I was looking at the albums, I realized I was like, man, there's certain albums that I knew they had put out and I had listened to it and I was like, I don't feel anything off of this album. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, actually there's this song and there's that song and this song's here. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's not bad. So for number four for me is Wrath because I thought it's a better album than I originally gave it credit for. So there's that. Number 3 for me is the self-titled Lamb of God album that has Memento Mori on it. When I heard that, I was like, "Hey, you know what? This song is really good." And then it kept going, and I was like, "This album's pretty good. It's not bad at all." It's one of the first albums that I really was able to kind of sink into a little bit and say, "Okay, you know what? My opinion has changed with Lamb of God," and it was also because I was listening to everything else at the same time. Number 2 is Sacrament. Got a lot of good songs off of Sacrament. My favorite song, Redneck, is off of Sacrament, so that was pretty cool. I love that video too. It's
Yeah,
such a
it's great.
cool,
It
it's
is a
a
good video.
cool
Yeah,
song. And then number 1 for me is the first album that I heard, first album that I purchased. Actually, it's the only one that I physically own, and that is Ashes of the Wake. Um, I didn't know who they were. I listened to them. I went to see them in Ozfest, and I was like, "Wow, this is a pretty interesting band." So that is my number 1, Ashes of the Wake.
awesome. That's a great list for you. Great list. Yeah. We have 2 of the same, maybe 3. So maybe 3. My number 4, I'm actually going to say right now because I honestly, it's a toss up for me. I'm not going to say which the toss up is, but I think I'm going to go with Wrath as 4. Yeah, it's tough for me, but yeah, Wrath is my number 4. My top 3 were pretty honestly easy for me to put in, just because I think these are the 3 that I just love listening to the most all the way through. So my number 3 is Sturm und Drang. That album for me is, I assume you know the whole story about Randy Blythe in
When he
jail
went
in
to jail,
Prague.
yeah. Uh-huh.
So he, that whole album is basically written after that, and he wrote a lot of that from that. So I encourage you, if you have not read his book Dark Days yet, or watched the documentary they put together about everything, I encourage you to check it out if you're a reader. It's a great book. He writes about his experience and being in jail and everything and what he went through, and also the documentaries are really good. So just recommend it if you have time. Definitely check those out. It's really, really interesting. But that album it's really emotional album. But I honestly think a lot of the songs are just fantastic songs. So I love that album. Number 1 and 2 for me they're very close. They're 1A and 1B for me. As a Sacrament, I have as number 2, and Ashes of the Wake is my number 1. Again, and Ashes of the Wake, when I first heard it, kind of like you, when I first time I heard it, I'm like, man, it just, after As the Palace Burns and Ashes of the Wake, when the first time I heard it, I'm like, this album is just so amazing. And then Sacrament was after that, and I was like, wow, they're getting better. But those 2 are like right there for me. It's hard for me to choose, but I have Ashes of the Wake like slightly up, a little bit higher. Honestly, it was based on my rankings of all the songs of every song that they have, and it came out a little bit higher. My favorite song is Black Earth Sun, which is on Sacrament. But Ashes of the Wake as a whole, I think I like just a little bit better. As a whole.
I can agree with that because there's just something about it, and I mean if I'm not mistaken, it's their biggest selling album. So what's interesting to me is that what I really like about everything that they've done is the sound that they get, especially the sound that they had in the mid 2000s. That snare drum, I mean, Chris Adler's sound on his drumming was just incredible. I mean, it sounded like he was playing a piccolo snare most of the time. I could be wrong, but I just love the way that thing snaps and pops. You can just hear that clear through. Like today's drum sounds sound like shit. And I have not talked about this as far as, because you've only been on the show a few times, but Chris K and I have talked incessantly about how today's drum sound just sounds like absolute ass. And what I figured out one day was that they're trying to make the snare sound like a floor tom. And I'm like, you know what? There's a reason why it doesn't sound like that, because it's not a fucking floor tom, you know? And
Yeah.
like it all sounds like one big mush. The snare drum doesn't stand out. It doesn't pop. And I hate that sound. And one of the biggest culprits of that production sound is Andy Sneap, and it's unfortunate because he's an extremely good producer. He gets great guitar sounds out of his bands, but this modern technique of recording drums just doesn't do it for me. And that's the one thing I really really like about Lamb of God is their drum sound. I mean, their sound overall, their production is great. So they have really crystal clear guitars. The mixing is done really well, but the way the drums sound is what made Lamb of God unique for their genre and their group of bands that they played with, because Shadows Fall didn't have that sound, but Lamb of God did. God Forbid didn't have that sound. Hatebreed didn't have that sound, but they're all in that same category.
Yeah.
And as much as I like Shadows Fall, I mean, Jason Bittner is one of my all-time favorite drummers. He's one of my all-time favorite drummers, and I love the fact that he's playing with Overkill now because that gives him a steady gig. But the drum sound was pretty average standard for drumming, although it stood out, but it wasn't like Chris Adler's at all. Chris Adler just stood out far and above, to the point Chris Adler's almost, to me, and this is going to be weird to say, and it's not, I'm not comparing skills whatsoever because Chris blows Lars Ulrich away, but Lars Ulrich has a specific sound. And you know it's Lars when you hear it, right?
Yep.
This Chris Adler sound with drumming is very unique. And it was actually kind of, for the most part, kind of muted when he was in Megadeth for that one album. But you could tell how solid the drumming was. But that's because that's Dave's band, and for lack of what it is, up until he left, Lamb of God was Chris's band, so.
Yeah. And I want to give it up to Art Cruz. I think Art Cruz is a fantastic drummer, and seeing him live, he's amazing. He was on the last two albums, and he came right in and just fit right in with that band.
I gotta sit there and say I've never seen anybody do hair twirls behind a drum set.
I know, right? That's great.
He's such a good. Well.
Just watching interviews with him, man, he's just seems like a cool, down home dude. So I really like that, and I just think in general, John Campbell is just a beast up there on the bass, and Morton and Willie Adler, their guitar work and just how they play off each other, man, it's just so awesome. So yeah, I just again, I'm glad we did this tonight because I was really excited for this one.
Cool.
All right, that's our big 4 Lamb of God albums, and that brings an end to this episode of Debating Metal. So please remember, if you want to interact with us, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or send us an email at debatingmetal@gmail.com.
And if you listen to us on YouTube, be sure to leave us a comment and ring that bell to be notified when we post a new episode. And as always, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, Podbean, and all the others. So like or subscribe, and thank you for listening. On behalf of Sklo and myself, stay safe and always turn it up to 11.
See ya!